Howdy ho, Roller Bros, and welcome back to r/Nice Girl. That's not actually r/Nice Girls. It's the Nice Girl stories from the submissions of the emails from you guys. I'm your guide, Q, and I was looking at this image because I was trying to find like a crazy lady image of a person doing weird things, and I clicked on like the link to the image, and it ended up showing me this GIF. I'm gonna call it a GIF because you guys get. But isn't this amazing? Isn't that just like the most wonderful thing? Do it again. I go, yeah, what is wrong with you? Come on. Shaking my head, right? Before we get going with the stories, I just want to keep this comment thing going because I like getting you guys involved in the stuff. So Jake Bushman, what's happening out there, man? And in the background is this picture of the unknown percussionist that just, they couldn't remember his name when they were making the yearbook. Also, no, I'm not on drugs, I'm just in a weird mood, and I also am sick right now. So let's get into the first story from an anonymous subscriber. Right, so this is an experience. Me, a 15-year-old guy in the UK, will be important later. I started going to college, but this particular one wasn't right for me, so I transferred to a smaller one as my friend was already going there, although he's very shy and ends up sitting by himself even when I try to approach him. I turned up on the first day, and the one other person in the room at this moment was the nice girl in question. Let's call her Psychopath. So I sit down and we start talking, and she was funny and honestly very attractive. We swap numbers and go about our day learning and everything. I get home and she's already messaged me asking how I am and everything. I was really into her, so I was excited about her interest, so I reply and we start calling and getting really close as friends. To the point where I end up finding out she became an orphan young and ended up joining a local street gang known for some bad shiz. About 3 weeks later, we call, and immediately she sounds excited and tells me she's dumped her boyfriend. Psychopath then goes on to ask me out and says, and I quote, "Don't worry, I won't mess you around like all those other girls, as I've told her I've been cheated on by all but one of my exes." I was kind of getting a weird vibe about her at this moment, but I still really liked her, so I said yes. She said she already has a plan for our date, and I shouldn't worry, just come to her house the next day. So the next day, I get on the bus and get to her place, and her plan was to walk around the local park and get high. I was kind of a nerdy kid and had never smoked weed, so I wasn't really comfortable doing it in public and was terrified of getting caught. So our date was walking around the park, her getting extremely high, and me walking around trying to stop her from getting into fights with people. We barely get back to her place and she starts virtually dragging me up to her room. We get there and she says, "Hey, want to see something cool?" Sits me on her bed and starts feeling around the top of her wardrobe and pulls out a pistol. I get up and I am pooping myself as she's stumbling around with this thing. I slowly move towards her and she, knowing I like guns, tries to hand it to me. Does that thing where she's holding it by having her finger in the trigger guard. I take it off of her and take out the mag, and this psychopath actually has a loaded Glock on top of her wardrobe. I put it back on her wardrobe and pretend to get a text from my parents saying I need to come home and book it out of there. That night I get spammed with messages and calls from psychopaths saying, "Why did you leave so soon? I wanted to have more fun," and I'm just sitting there not knowing what to do. The next day we have college and I arrive kind of late as buses were slow, and when I walk in, everyone's in the corner with Psychopath and they turn and stare at me. Apparently she's told everyone at the college that we were on a date and we were both smoking and getting high, and that I just completely abandoned her an hour away from home with no money. In class, I get to talk to her and ask her why she told everyone that, and she said, "Well, you did abandon me. Give me another chance to prove how good of a match we are, and I will tell them the truth." I just sat there staring in amazement and then said, "You're crazy," and blocked her on everything. Big mistake. I get spammed from different numbers and different accounts, all from her saying, "Why don't you love me? I'm not like all the other girls. I'll never cheat on you. You, this is the biggest mistake you'll ever make." It was at that moment that I decided to leave that college and block every number she tried to contact me on. I'm now happily engaged and living life, and she still tries to contact me every now and then, talking about my fiance and how she's a much better woman than her, but I happily haven't seen her since. Okay, so as I do with all stories, I'm going to put up a poll asking if you guys think this is real or fake, but I'm going to add a third option of if you think it's real and exaggerated, because I think that is a common situation with a lot of these stories, but that being kind of beside the point. She was in a gang. I guess that's the only really, like, big red flag. But you don't want to just judge people because they used to be in gangs, because people can have all sorts of history in their youth and, like, completely reform themselves and stuff. And she also says she's not like those other girls, but that makes sense because he said that all his other girlfriends cheated on him. So, like, obviously you would not want to be like that. I really wish this dude didn't have to leave that college in order to, like, get his life together after this, because he could really have a tarnished reputation if everybody at that school thinks that he was an ass that left her out in the middle of nowhere with no money or no way home, even though that wasn't the case at all, and he never really had a chance to redeem himself and to explain to people what the actual situation was. So I just hope everything worked out for you, dude. This is another longer subscriber-submitted story from our boy Leo, and this one is absolutely insane, so I heavily encourage you to stick through it all the way. This was about a year ago. I was 15 and stupid and in high school. This particular story is set in Britain, another story from the UK, so I'm sorry if you don't understand a lot of the things said here. I'll try to give explanations to them all. Anyway, my name is Leo, short for Leonardo. I'm not that smart, but I am good at rugby and soccer. But I also enjoy anime and manga, and even some stupid kids cartoons like Danny Phantom and Ben 10 to this day. Here's a very important factor. I'm gay. Meet the nice girl of this story. We'll call her Annabelle. Annabelle is admittedly quite smart, but definitely not an athlete. She also watches anime and is in my registration class, therefore she is in a lot of my other classes too. I suppose she wants to present herself as the shy, kawaii anime girl, but she's not that good at it. Anyways, Annabelle and I barely know each other. I know she likes anime, and she knows I like anime. That was the only information I thought she knew about me, or so I thought. This was a year ago, but I was openly gay then, and I was in a relationship, and still am, with my great boyfriend, but unfortunately only shared one class with him. Don't worry, tons of gay makeout in the boys' bathroom at lunch. I was extremely worried that there was a lack of gay makeout sessions in the boys' bathroom during lunchtime, but I'm really glad that Leo let me know that there was plenty of that happening. One day, I was in the boys' locker room after rugby practice. I don't have any grudges against our opposing team, who are from the same school. I know, weird split dynamic, so all of us are just chatting normally and messing around by throwing clothes and stuff back and forth. One guy throws my school shirt by the door and I run over to get it. However, the second I reach the door, I hear a eep squeal and the sound of footsteps running away. To this day, I know it was her. I didn't think anything of it at the time and eventually made it to my next class, a class I share with Annabelle, unfortunately. However, I sit at the left side of the classroom near the front, and she sits at the right side closer to the center. We're diagonal from each other, but if she tried to talk to me from there, she would be caught. This class is higher numeracy, one of my worst classes. I think that everyone in the class knows that I frequently get help from both teacher and students alike. I was trying to write down whatever Pythagoras was, or something like that, I don't remember. Annabelle strolls over from her desk to mine. I figured she might be coming over to help, but instead she just clutched her book close to her chest and nervously fiddled with her hair and looked down at the ground as she quietly asked if I could loan her a pencil. I found this weird since she just ignored 3 other people to come and ask me, but I still give her one nonetheless. That moment I hand her the pencil, her eyes light up and she stands still, looking from the floor into my really confused eyes. I guess she thought this was the scene from an anime where the protagonist meets the love of his life or whatever. She'd been standing there for about 30 seconds or whatever, so I just closed the pencil into her hand and got back to my work. I didn't interact with her at all for the rest of that class. Anyways, lunchtime strolls around and I thankfully get to sit with my boyfriend at our little table. We're openly gay and receive both support and hate for it. None of it really bothers us because none of it is to the extreme. I was talking to my boyfriend, who I'll name Vincent for this story, about this anime I had been watching and I thought he'd really like. He wasn't so keen on anime and I was determined to change that, and teasing him about it since I thought he wouldn't like the gore in it. After a few back and forth laughs from each other, I feel too 2 quick taps on my shoulder. It's Annabelle. I turn around to see what she wants, and without giving me a chance to speak, she asks if I would come over to her house tonight. Okay, wow, I didn't know what to say. I was free that night, but I didn't want to go. But my awesome boyfriend senses my awkwardness to not say no, and informs Annabelle that I was going over to his house for a movie night. But oh no, this did not stop her. She twiddles a strand of her hair around her pointing finger and asks when I'd next be free. I knew she wouldn't give up, so I say if she wants, I could come over to hers the next day after school. Big mistake. She squeals happily and runs away giggling like crazy, clutching her school bag to her chest. Vincent distracts me for the rest of lunch with some behind the school makeouts. It works. This guy really likes to talk about making out with his boyfriend. I'll just say that right now. The next day, nothing really out of the place went on at school. The only thing I did notice out of the norm was that Annabelle seemed to be everywhere I went. Even when she was supposed to be on the opposite side of school, she was in the same hallway as me. Creepy. I didn't think anything of it, mistake, and she meets up with me at the end of the day. Both of our houses are within walking distance of the school, but they're both quite a distance away from each other. Thank God. We start walking together and I begin to question her about why she wanted to come over. No response. I ask her again. No response. I give up after 2 times and start playing a game on my phone until we reach her house. Annabelle has a fairly standard 2-floored house. Nothing was off about it yet. She takes her shoes off at the door and I do the same. She finally speaks for the first time in a while and asks me if I want to come up to her room. Thinking that was the place we'd be hanging out, I follow her up. Her room seems normal at first, but it got so much worse. Oh God, so much worse. Like one of those pictures that the longer you stare at it, the worse it gets. She asks me to sit on the bed, and I do, looking around. One of the first alarming things that I see is... oh my God! One of the first alarming things that I see is she has pictures of me and my boyfriend on her wall. They were taken from my Instagram, as well as others of just me and some of my boyfriend entirely cropped out. Not gonna lie, at this point I was freaking out. Annabelle had been looking in this big cupboard for something, and oh God, I was mortified when she pulled out what she'd been looking for. She pulled out a bag of items that belonged to me. She sat cross-legged on the floor and fished out each item and presented it to me. Firstly, one of my test results in higher numeracy. Not that weird. The pencil I loaned to her, not that weird either. One of my old water bottles, weird. One of my shirts that I thought I had lost. I was trying not to punch this girl in the face. And here's the grand finale. She pulls out a ring box from the bag and opens it. It's a tooth. She stole one of my teeth. How do I know this? During a rugby game last summer we did for my school sports day, my front bottom tooth was knocked out by an elbow. Sore, I know. And I was taken off the field. I assumed that the tooth was just lost to the world, but oh no, she had taken it. I'm literally shaken and near screaming as she stands up and sits on my lap, saying that she's loved me forever and that if I ever rejected her feelings, she would end her own life. I'd just like to mention that this girl knows I'm gay as well. In a rush of panic, I push her off of me and run out of the house, grabbing my school bag but forgetting my shoes, probably added to her collection. Annabelle didn't show up to school for a few days afterwards, but I didn't feel guilty at all. When she did show up, she didn't talk to me at all and avoided me until we both graduated. At the time, I didn't file a police report in fear that it wasn't that serious, and it probably was too late for me to say anything. But after a few months of talking about it with Vincent, he convinced me to do it, and Annabelle was relocated somewhere else. That's what I heard, at least. Oh my God, this one is so extreme. Like, I can almost not believe it, but at the same time, it seems genuine. I just feel as though this is kind of like a person who watches too much TV or too much anime that has this just romanticized idea of how romance works, gone too far, combined with mental instability. Because like I was sort of like this when I was younger. Like when I was in elementary school, I remember this girl had like this little keychain thing. It was some animal on it, I can't remember the animal, but it fell off of her backpack somehow and I picked it up and then like brought it home with me, and I was like, should I keep this item as a reminder of her? Yeah, I know, I was a weird freaking nice guy even in elementary school. Or should I give it back? And what I decided to do was give it back to her and be like, oh, I found your keychain thing in order to gain those sweet good boy points or whatever. But I sort of understand where this mentality comes from, but I just can't imagine getting this extreme. As bad as I was, I never considered doing any of this stuff. This is like extremely stalkery, and I feel like it's a pretty decent chance that this girl is not going to retaliate or do anything bad to herself, because she probably would have done it right away and he would have noticed it. So I hope everything works out for you, Leo, and I hope that you're safe, and I hope that Annabelle gets the help that she really needs. So be careful out there, guys. Skate on to the best of your abilities, you lovely bladers of skating, and I will see you super soon. Make sure you're drinking more water. Have an absolutely fantastic day, okay?